Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this session today, Revolutionizing Your Study Hall. My name is Ellen McNulty, and I'm the Director of Services here at MyFlex Learning. I'll be guiding the conversation this morning. And so, why are we here this morning? Over the most recent school year, we here at MyFlex, we were contacted by a few schools looking for help in managing their study halls. We viewed this as a creative use of the application beyond the traditional flex or wind block management, and wondering if this was more of a pattern with schools or maybe a global need was out there. We reached out to a couple of schools who were doing exactly this. They expanded their use of MyFlex Learning to include study hall management. And so today we're going to be chatting with Laura Mullen from Norwood High School and Anna Paradise from Winchester High School. And I'll let you guys say a little bit more about yourselves. Laura?
Good morning. Yes, I'm Laura Mullen. I am the Instructional Technology Specialist for the Norwood Public Schools. And we started using MyFlex. We've been in Aspen District for a while, and we started using MyFlex kind of, I think, during that hybrid COVID year. And we've sort of slowly grown in using it more specifically this year.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. And Anna?
Hi, my name is Anna Paradise. I'm the Dean of Student Life at Winchester High School. So I'm like an assistant principal, except I don't do disciplinary actions. I focus on whole child experience within the building and things like that. So I run our Win block, which is our flex block, and we adopted MyFlex fairly early on with that, right after our hybrid year. So we've been with MyFlex for a while now, I think 3 or 4 years. Maybe this is the end of our 3rd year, I think. And we needed it to help manage. We have 1,400 students. That's a lot of people moving at once. And Aspen, as we all know, is not super dynamic, pretty static of a thing. So we brought this in, and then our teachers liked MyFlex so much for WinBlock that they really pushed us to say, why can't we use this for all of the periods where people move? And that would include our directed studies and study halls. So then we pushed MyFlex to expand its capabilities. And they were very gracious, and they did. And we love using it for our study halls. So
awesome. Thank you. So just a little bit about the schools themselves. So Norwood High School, population of the town, the enrollment is just under 1,000 students. From what I saw, the teaching staff, I pulled this from Aspen, it was about 90 students. And about their master schedule, so they have a 5-day, 6-period schedule. And then the next few bullets, I'm talking about the study section specifically. So their full year sections. They use multiple different master types, so study and class, because everyone on the call is from Aspen, so I'm using some Aspen terminology here. And then the study sections, they meet in different patterns. So some of them were single blocks, a couple of them were multi-blocks. And what we're looking at here on the screenshot to the right is a screenshot of MyFlex Learning. So we're seeing, actually, because of the way the time where their win block falls, we actually see their win block here in the green and red blocks. And then a study hall for this student is displayed in blue. Those colors are colors that Laura, chose. It's not something that MyFlex determines of what specific colors they are. But just to illustrate that, we can have a dynamic look for when things are happening and accommodate a rotation of study halls. For Winchester, again, like Anna said, it's about 1,400 students, and again, similar staffing, about 100 staff. And their schedule was a 6-day, 5-period schedule from Aspen. Their study hall sections, from what I saw, was more semester-based, and they used the study master type. But similarly, they had single block sections and multi-block sections. And here again, we're just seeing what it looks like for a student in MyFlex for that study hall, and how it appears on their calendar for them. Anna or Laura, do you want to add anything about the school specifically?
No, just because we don't have a 5-day schedule, we have a 6-day schedule, and it's somewhat of a waterfall. It's a modified waterfall. Like, none of our blocks meet at the same time any day. So on Monday, June 10th is never going to be the same ever again. So it's a very complicated. It's not like we can say every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, this is happening. And so having something that could flex with our rotating schedule was really important too, to keep it, to make it work smoothly.
Awesome. Thanks. And Laura, you guys are more Monday through Friday, right, for your schedule. So
Yep.
The days of the weeks are more predictable, but the periods might change.
Yes. So every Monday, students follow the same schedule. Every Tuesday, the students follow the same schedule. It does get a little bit you know, I mean, it's not as nice and linear as even that sounds, because there are always, you know, extra things thrown in, or study hall that meets, you know, some Tuesdays, and then another Tuesday, a kid might be going someplace else. So for the most part, yes, Monday through Friday schedule for the students is the same.
Thank you. So let's get a little bit more specific about how study at each of your schools works. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because for this portion, because it's more of a conversation. We don't need to look at this little question mark. So let me stop sharing. Okay. And then again, if you've pinned us, you should just see the three of our faces on your screen. So that Laura, Anna, and myself, Ellen, are just visible. And let me just get one more thing here. Okay. So let's get some background on how study works at each of your schools. How is it structured? Maybe what spaces are in the school that you use? Because sometimes it may be outside of a traditional classroom. How do students actually get study in their schedule? And what are maybe students expected to do during it? Anna, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So we have about 125 to 250 students in study hall almost every period. So we have a lot of kids in study halls. We don't have enough money to fund the elective teachers that we should. So most of our children have at least one study hall. And so we have kids in our study halls. They're usually assigned into individual teacher classrooms. That's what our staff prefers, as opposed to assigning. So there's about 20 to 25 kids per individual classroom assigned to teachers, and that's their duty block. We used to group them and then let the teachers go free once the attendance happened, and the teachers preferred to be in their own classrooms in smaller studies, so we adapted to what teachers wanted. So our kids will have study halls. We don't have any mixed scheduling, meaning, so for the most part, if they have a study hall block, it is 4 blocks. It's the entire period. So a block every time it meets is a study hall. There's very few things we offer besides learning center that aren't all 4 blocks, right? So some kids with mixed learning centers may have 2 studies, 2 learning centers. Otherwise, if you have study, it's 4 blocks of study. We allow children to do what they want to do during that block, but it's usually a quiet space. So whatever they're doing is meant to be sort of self-contained. So they can listen to music if they wanted to, they like with headphones, but they can't really make noise, if that makes sense. And so we use the library as a sign-up location, and that's where kids who want to work on group projects or things like that, or we can have kids move to teachers' classrooms during study halls. It's a time where they meet with their guidance counselors. They meet with clinical counselors if they need them, and adjustment counselors. They go to teachers for extra help if teachers are available, and they do makeup tests. And so we have quite a bit of movement during our study halls, not quite as much during a traditional flex block. We have a lot more opportunities during flex block, but all of those things were happening during our study halls. So we were doing Sign Up Genius for the library sign up, which was then going into a spreadsheet and getting emailed out, and teachers were trying to check that against their Aspen lists, which was really tedious. And that's what MyFlex had alleviated for us when we went to them, because that's what we were using for our flex block as well. And so when we transitioned to MyFlex for the flex block, teachers really quickly said, like, well, why can't we do this for study hall? So we're just checking one attendance thing. In fact, our staff would like MyFlex to overlay over our entire schedule so that they never have to use Aspen again. MyFlex hasn't agreed to that yet, but they really just prefer the interface so much more on MyFlex. And so then we transitioned. And so we sort of worked through it with MyFlex, and we got our tags in the correctly, which is the computer programming in the background. So kids with a study hall first block could sign up for the library, or could be pulled by another teacher to make up a test or for extra help. They could be scheduled for appointments with guidance, those types of things. And so we have gone to basically, unless it's a nurse's pass, a passless system, a paperless pass system at Winchester High School, so that there are no more paper passes. There's no more just let the kid go. Like, it's all tracked and we know where everyone is for the most part. Still 1,400 moving pieces, but we feel like that we have a much better handle as the administrative team on where our students are and their accountability and their safety. And that was sort of the big thing that we really wanted from MyFlex, was to really understand who was present and where they were within the building. So if there was an emergency or we needed to locate someone, we had a real way in real time to find them. So.
Nice. Thank you. And yeah. Laura, any background on the study hall, how it works, or how it worked, what students were expected to do, stuff like that?
Yep. So our study halls, I would say different from Anna's situation. Kids would have a study hall maybe once or twice a week. There's very rarely a student's going to have a study hall like across the board every second block or anything like that. So and freshmen do not have any study halls. So it's only, and I think even next year sophomores aren't going to have study halls either. So it's more upperclassmen have study halls, meeting once or twice a week. And initially students could go wherever they wanted during study hall, so they can, as Anna was saying, go make up a test, go make up a gym class, go to the library, and they were just using paper passes. And then post COVID we changed our schedule around to have our win blocks, which are like the flex blocks, and we used my flex for that, and teachers really liked it. And the librarians had some wins in here, and things were a little bit it wasn't working so well to have the kids be using like the MyFlex for win block, but then not for study halls. So this year we just transitioned very slowly, having, I think we first started in November, like Friday first block study halls. If the kids wanted to go to the library, they could use MyFlex. And then slowly throughout the year, we added all of the study halls. But at this point, the only place students can go during study halls in MyFlex is the library. So I think because of the win blocks, for the most part, students stay in their study halls unless they're coming to the library. They would use the win blocks to go make up tests or, see teachers for extra help. So for the most part, the kids that have studies just stay in the study. If they want to go to the library, they use MyFlex. And we learned immediately, as soon as the kids didn't have to get a pass from the library, go up to the third floor to get it signed by their teacher. Like the kids loved using MyFlex to sign up for the library during study halls. So that's been a really nice change. The kids seem a lot happier. And I think the librarian's here overhearing me. I think she's happier that it's a little bit less paperwork that they're trying to keep track of. So that's been how we've used MyFlex for the
Awesome.
study
Thank
halls.
you. Thank you. So it sounds like both of you had similar experiences with staff is saying or staff and maybe students saying they enjoyed MyFlex with how they were using it with their win, and maybe could we use it with MyFlex? Was there anything else driving the need for change, or was it really just kind of trying to be more efficient and please people, based to give them what they were looking for?
Well, we had definitely seen an increase in pass forgery, which was also a thing during MyFlex with the scribble thing. So ours really was more like a security based sort of, like we really wanted accountability just for where our kids were, and this seemed like the best way to have an idea of where they were at any given time. The most efficient, because you can't track the paper passes the same way and all of that type of stuff. So it was more of a safety thing, and that's how we ended up paying for it through through our school department, because student safety is a big deal. So.
And another thing for us too is the just traffic at the start of our win blocks and our study halls was just crazy, because people were going everywhere, and 10 minutes into the period they'd be like, oh, I just got to get it signed here and I'm going to this floor. And so this way, since they did it ahead of time, it's like they should know, okay, when second block starts, you go right to the library instead of, doing a few laps.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And so once you guys had the idea of starting to use MyFlex, you thought that could be a solution. How was the decision kind of finalized? Was it totally your decision? Did you have to involve other people? What factors were involved with that?
So once we had brought MyFlex into the building, so we brought it in for win block, which is our flex block first. And so that we got a grant to help us do a proof of concept to show the school committee that it was worthwhile and all that type of stuff. And then very quickly after even 6 months in, we had done a proof of concept in terms of the value of it. And it was very clear. Once they bought into it for win block, it was really easy to convince them that we were going to overlay it for study halls and things like that, because it really is no different in terms of what we're doing. It's a dynamic block that needs a different way to schedule as opposed to our static academic blocks. And so there was full buy-in. The administrative team bought in as soon as the suggestion came up, just because it's meeting the same needs. So it was the same argument basically that we used in terms of why we needed it for win block, and everyone sort of jumped on board and adopted really seamlessly.
Awesome. And Laura, how was it for yours
Yeah, I think initially, our principal was the one who brought my flex into it, and Steph Bowden, who's on the call here, maybe you can add to this. I think the first I heard of it was sort of that our principal wanted to use it for our win blocks, and then it really was kind of me and the librarians who were like, "Let's try and do this now for study hall because it seems like a no-brainer." Um, and similar to Anna, like everybody was on board as soon as we just said, "Oh, we're going to do this for study too. It's the same thing you do for win block." They were like, "Great, okay, done."
So that actually segues perfectly to my next question. So how did you guys introduce this change to your staff and to your students? Laura, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so when we introduced it, we did it again for our win block, maybe 3 years ago, and we did take a faculty meeting one afternoon. So one Friday afternoon, we had given them information beforehand, but we spent a half hour of the faculty meeting just kind of explaining the procedure, what teachers were going to have to do, and then I made like a little 4-minute video that then say the week before it was going to go live for the students. When the students went to their win blocks, the win teacher played the video.
Okay.
And I kind of wasn't around, a couple different tech people were around, but basically the idea was that staff was trained at the faculty meeting on Monday, and then Tuesday during win, the win teachers showed my little video, which was like student point of view. And then the win block teachers had the students download the app on their phones if they wanted it, tried to change a class for, the next week's win. And then I was just kind of going around to different classrooms if any of the kids needed help. But as you guys know, the students pick up things very quickly. And so that was pretty easy. I do think that kind of trial during that one win block was helpful for the teachers because it kind of forced them to troubleshoot and have the students there to help them, and they were helping the students. So I thought it was kind of a good way to do it. And then, we took the next week it sort of went live, and for the most part, there was really no issues.
That's awesome.
It was great. And then again, when a couple of years later, when we started doing it with study halls, it took, we made some announcements starting next week during study. If you want to go to the library, use my flex, and that was it. And the kids were fine.
Oh, that's awesome. So it was really just an announcement over the PA. That's awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. We trained our staff when we switched to MyFlex, and we did it during a tech PD for the high school, and we covered Aspen and all of the things. And we taught them how to build classes, how to pull students, how to push them, all that type of stuff. And then we keep repeating that same PD sort of regularly for staff who want to learn a little bit more nuggets and type things, or new to the building type staff. But once the kids, now we only have to onboard the 9th graders, and we do that as part of our orientation mentoring sort of thing. But when we rolled into study halls, they already knew how to use it for the win block. And so it was seamless. There were 0 questions for them about how to use it. It was more of us trying to figure out as the adults what to do.
And I think too, the more accountability we put on the kids, the first week or two, we definitely were like, okay, you forgot to do it. Let's, go through and do it. But I feel like as soon as we kind of set the hard line and we're like, well, if you didn't sign up at MyFlex by 8 o'clock, that's it. The kids learn very quickly and they figure it out.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the 8 o'clock cutoff. So in MyFlex, we have the ability to control the ability for signups. So do you want to speak about how you're controlling your study signups, Laura, and then we'll go to Anna.
So our study signups, we have, it's a week out. So the kids know a week in advance if they want to sign up for the library. So they're able to do it a week out up until I think it's 8 a.m. when it's a first block study hall, because the study starts at 8:15, or the block starts at 8:15, and everybody else has until 8:30. And I'd say for the last round of study halls that we moved into MyFlex, we have to be, a little bit tougher on our deadline. But it's funny, every week the librarian's like, okay, starting in September, it is a hard cutoff. We're going to make the kids learn. So yes, we have 8 a.m. when it's a first period study, and then 8:30 for the rest of the blocks.
Rest of the day. Okay. And Anna, how are the cutoffs working at your school?
So we open up all of our signups at once, and they open up at 8 a.m. on day one of our cycle. And so that includes our win block signups and our and any of our study halls for the whole week. And so at 8 a.m. on day one, everything's available for that 6 days, but they can't go into the next rotation. And so our study halls are live until 1 p.m. either the day of, so if it's after 1 p.m. or 1 p.m. the day before, so if it's a morning, the next block. But 1 p.m. is our cutoff. And we don't have any study halls left ever, spaces left in our library after like 9 a.m. on day one, and it's booked all the way out 5 periods a day for the entire 6-day cycle. So our kids know very quickly how to sign up. But again, I agree with Laura. Part of why we really liked MyFlex was because we were trying to bring back, we found, there's so much grace that we gave after COVID in terms of getting deadlines or getting things done, or, executive functioning sort of type things, or things that were deadlines and requirements. And we were just bending over backwards to hand out passes during all of these periods and last minute and all this sort of stuff. And as Laura said, super chaotic for the first 10 minutes of every period, and kids not pre-planning. And so we really saw MyFlex overlaying on our schedule as a way for kids to build back up that muscle of, I need to do things by a certain date. These are deadlines. The software will close. The school's not going to make these exceptions. And it has been a small way for us to help back to like okay, we got to follow some strategic and some sort of planning. And we really want our kids to have that forethought as to how I want to use my time, as opposed to after the block started, oh, maybe I want to do this, like type thing. So.
Thanks. Gotcha. And then with MyFlex and Aspen specifically, we can, send the attendance back to Aspen that your staff are taking in MyFlex, even if it's the daily attendance record, right? If your first block is your daily attendance. So you guys want to speak about how your teachers have felt about the attendance, how you, from a management perspective, how the attendance flow has been working for you guys?
Yeah, I think it took us a little bit of time to figure out the timing. So for that, I worked very closely with our one of the admin assistants in the main office who deals with the attendance. So I think just to make sure the timing of it worked, so that we had enough time from when you were sending over the data till the automatic phone calls were going out to the families. So I think that did actually take us a little bit of time to figure out the timing of it. But once we figured it out, it's been great. And I think it is nice in MyFlex. I know the admin assistant, there's a report that she can look at very quickly to make sure that the teacher has in fact submitted the attendance. Because if you have, say there's a block with 7 or 8 study halls, she can just look at that quickly, see, oh, this one teacher didn't post yet, and she can reach out proactively just to make sure the timing of everything works.
And Anna, how's it going for you guys?
I would say too, it took a little trial and error back and forth from an administrative standpoint about when the best time for Aspen and MyFlex to communicate would be, just to sync up the data. And so, I cannot ever say enough about how great the support staff is at MyFlex. It's just any issue you ever have, they take care of it almost immediately, or explain when it will be done because of whatever reasons. And so I have to say, Ellen's team has been amazing. And I can just say, can we bump this by 15 minutes? We think this would work better. And she's like, all set. And then we just try it again. And, that type of thing. So like Laura said, once we figured out what worked for our reporting systems at school, there is no problem with MyFlex aligning to the timing that we needed. So I think we talk 5 periods a day at least, meaning back and forth between Aspen and MyFlex, because every block reports its attendance back to Aspen towards the end of the block, et cetera. And then they sync, I think, almost every night, because our kids are constantly rearranging their schedules. So.
Well, thank you for your kind words.
I want to add to, yes, I will agree with everything Anna said, and the customer service is amazing. And even when Ellen and her team will send me emails, I'll still usually be like, can we just hop on a Google Meet and talk through it? And they do. And so, yes, I agree. It is, I think, rare to have a company be so helpful, and they are.
Thank you. I'm going to blush. So we're kind of wrapping up the formal part of this conversation. I'm going to reshare my screen again, but are there any other benefits that you see or that your school has reported back to you, since using MyFlex for studies in particular?
I mean, I would just say, and this speaks to what Laura said, like it's added a calmness to our building in the sense of we really do have a procedure now for kids to move and to be in different places. And so we're not seeing that study hall run around, loose passes. You know, you used to walk into a teacher's room and see 5 shards of paper that were scribbled on, you know, like all that sort of stuff. And so we just don't have any of that anymore. And I think it feels calmer because we're not using the old antiquated paper pass system or simultaneous.
And I think too, we don't use I don't think the teachers use the reporting as much as they can. Hopefully that will grow, but I do think it is really nice because there have been a couple instances where at the end of the term, you know, someone's arguing about a grade. It's really nice to be able to look back and see, oh, you know, Anna had, you know, 14 study halls that she could have come and she never came, you know, to get extra help or to make stuff up or whatever. Or actually that's for Winblock. But I think it's nice to have that reporting piece because like you said, papers can get destroyed or thrown out or whatever. And so instead of the like back and forth, he said, she said, it's nice to have this digital confirmation that you can look back on and say, oh, no, you never came. You said you were gonna, you never came. So I think that's helpful. And I do think also, just to reiterate, I think students and staff just really appreciate the ease of being able to have, you know, some ownership of their schedule and when they're going to move and when they want to move. I think that's really nice and it's easy.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
would agree. Our staff likes it so much that they even pull kids during their open end. So our seniors aren't assigned sometimes first and last. If they have a study hall first or last block, they have what we call open ends. And so we even had to go back to MyFlex and say, like, can you add this title in as well? Because teachers like the accountability of, well, I had the senior schedule a makeup during their open end, which is like a study hall for them. And sort of like, so we've even expanded it and teachers love the accountability of the digital trail of being like, I pulled them and they did not come. So this is what, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen again. You guys can see it. And then, so just a quick, you know, this is a recap of where we took this conversation today, talking from where you started before MyFlex, what propelled the need for a change, and then what that process was like for you during the rollout and then currently. But if there's any questions from the audience, feel free to unmute or you can put them in the chat. We weren't quite sure how long this conversation was going to go, so we did budget a whole hour, but it doesn't mean we need to take up everyone's full hour of time. I know it's precious, especially on a Friday morning. But if there's anybody who has a question for Laura, Anna, or myself, feel free to ask.
Hi, Ellen.
Yes.
This is Patrick from Boston Latin School.
How are you, Patrick?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Good.
Everybody else. I was hoping that maybe Anna and Laura could talk a little bit about the pull function, because we're in sort of a similar boat where we have a large population of students who want to sign up for the library so that they can, you know, have their study hall in the library. We also have a W block that can be sort of a combination of, I want to go to the weight room, my teacher wants me to make up a test. So how do you work with getting teachers to, you know, you have the ability to pull students in, let's do that, let's follow through. How has that experience been for you?
So for us, because we rolled out Winblock MyFlex first, and teachers were used to pulling kids to them for MyFlex or pushing kids to teachers they needed extra help with. Like, so our liaisons may push a special ed student for extra help, but it's all done with consent of the student. We don't do anything without informing them. I don't think the teachers, again, we had to train them how to use it to do the MyFlex portion, but then switching to study halls was no different because it's the same pull push feature and it's the same practice that you would do. It becomes fairly easy once it first starts, but we do, every once in a while, we have teachers who just want to write the paper pass and that type of stuff. So we just keep reiterating that, you know, we're a team and that as teachers, we need to support each other and use the tools that we have to keep everyone as organized as possible. And so it's even fewer and fewer, and it sort of goes less and less as we've used it for longer.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I think the pull feature. It's very simple to do. There's also like there's a lock feature. So if a teacher is like, nope, you owed me this from forever ago, I'm pulling you in on Tuesday, and lock them. Then if another teacher is looking to get the student, because say you owe something for them too, they'll see that lock, and that's sort of like an indication, okay, somebody pulled them for a reason. And then again, it goes back to the kids' accountability. So I think then that teacher who wanted them but saw that somebody else locked them will say to the student, okay, I was going to pull you into the wind block. You're already going to Miss Bradley, so you got to figure out another time to make this up, or again, put it sort of on the student. But the ease of pulling is no big deal.
Great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Oh, I see in the chat from Steph. So she said, I love the idea of including student onboarding as part of the 9th grade orientation. So great idea. Give it a few more minutes. If there's any questions, you can unmute, or you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can help if you can unmute.
And I'd also say, just, if people have questions after this, or they think of something after this, I'm happy to talk to somebody about, our experience in a little bit more detail, or answer any questions too.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help anyone too if they want to talk about like how I presented it to, central office, or how we moved it forward, and things like that, because it really has become such a hugely used tool in our building. So I can't say enough good things about our implementation and experience with MyFlex. So
thank you. Let's see, I've got another comment. So this is very similar, if not the same, as what the Nashua School District does for eBlock, which is like a great study hall, super useful and works great. So thank you, Felicia. So I'm going to toggle to the last slide for today's presentation. So thank you. Big thank you to Laura and Anna for participating and sharing your experiences today. Thank you to everyone for joining us. As mentioned, if there's any questions after we hang up today, feel free to reach out. You can, MyFlex Learning, you can email me at emcnulty@myflexlearning as well, myflexlearning.com, and I can connect you with Anna and Laura if that's what you would like to, have further discussion with. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop the recording.